Galaxies.
Hey, welcome everybody to Settle It on the Screen.
Cold opening.
Cold opening.
I
My name is Michael Sroka. I'm here along with Nick Houslander, my other host Glen Updike, and Skype 2. Looks like he's playing Metroid. And our guest today, Jace Hall. How you doing, Jace?
I'm okay if you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Well, hey.
We just can't see you, but...
Oh,
we don't see
wait. He's going to make it so you can see me. Neo?
Ooh, cool.
No. No, it's black on the side. They're going to fix it so you can see me. Not that there's much to see.
Not at all.
My coffee.
Well, tonight we're going to be talking with the custodian of Twin Galaxies about the new adjudication verification system. We've compiled questions, and some of these questions have been answered by Jace actually on the website, so he might be repeating yourself tonight just a little bit.
I don't mind.
Okay with that, right?
Listen. I am going to answer every question the best that I can. I don't care if I have to repeat myself. There is nothing but open information waiting for people, and that's it.
Excellent.
I can see the chat. Okay, so if you're in the chat texting, I will see it.
Excellent.
Good. Well, we might as well just start it off with...
Yeah, we got to start. Yeah, we got
with just the basic... For those of you who haven't read, and there is a very extensive explanation of the new adjudication process, which you should go check out. It explains it. I had to read it a couple times just because it is a lot of information. But after a couple of reads, it actually is... It's pretty self-explanatory if that's the right word to use. But it does explain everything. But for those of you who haven't read it, Jace, do you want to explain it from the get-go, or how should we do this?
Yeah, I mean, do you want to just do a short summary? There you are. How you doing?
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah. Oh, you can see. Oh, hey, look at that. Okay. Yes, I can do a short summary.
Cool.
Historically, I'm going to start a little bit. Let me back up a little bit so that I can frame this correctly. Historically, Twin Galaxies would adjudicate high scores by having a single individual who had been empowered by Twin Galaxies review a score performance either in a live format or on a videotape format and determine if the score is valid, and that would make it into the database. Now, inherently, there are a lot of advantages to a system like that in terms of when it's 1982 and you can quickly determine if something really happened because you were there. You can get it into the database, and people can be specific experts on a specific type of game, potentially, if you can find that right person and empower them. But there are also a lot of challenges. The number one challenge in a system like that is scalability, because the more submissions you get, the more people, individuals like that, you need to sit and watch the performance. So that eventually starts to create problems for Twin Galaxies. And then there's the fact that when you're dealing with single individuals in a decision-making process, that there can be bias, or there can be some lack of experience, or there can be a whole host of issues that surround it. So it has its pluses, and then it's sort of its minuses. And it worked well for, it worked for a long time in that way. So when Twin Galaxies comes along into my custodianship, one of the tough things that I needed to figure out was, how do you adjudicate today? How do you create scalability? How do you bring more credibility to the scores that you're entering into your database? How do you have transparency of process? How do you, there's just a whole list of items to address, because my view, and let me be clear about this, I have been playing video games and for a very, very, very long time, longer than most people watching this stream. Also, beyond just playing them, I have made them. I have made them across multiple platforms. I have participated in the video game universe for a very long time, and I personally feel that video game culture is important, and I think it's relevant, and I think the people who are part of it are important, and I think that they're relevant. And Twin Galaxies, starting back in '81, which I remember, has been such a flagship of sort of holding up players and their achievements and making them relevant and important. And so it always bothered me that Twin Galaxies struggled to live up to the total potential that it's very easy to see something like it having. And so I have a personal interest in making sure Twin Galaxies lives up to that potential for the sole purpose of video game culture and players to be able to have something that collectively tells society in a very legitimate way that this lifestyle, this way of living, these sorts of things matter. They're just as valid as anything that goes on in the NBA or the NHL or whatever. And so, you know, my primary angle coming at all of this is sort of this total view. And the adjudication process is part of that total view. And so I sort of went to go to solve that. That's sort of the starting point of did that make sense? Did I miss anything?
Yeah, it makes complete sense. Yeah, exactly. And this is kind of one of my first questions we had planned, of course, for you. Now this is I don't want to say your baby, but you are the one that has behind the scenes only access to this adjudication system, correct?
Right.
Only you, and which by that meaning you would have a conflict of interest if you were competing. So this.
Well, no, I cannot hold a record. I cannot put any records for myself in that. And I want to address what Rudy Ferretti just said, which he says just because you played and created video games does not qualify you as an expert. Yes, it does. So I will challenge that statement, and I will hold to it. I am an expert in video games, period. I don't, whether you're an expert or not, Ferretti, is not relevant because you're not designing the adjudication system. I think it's great if you are an expert, that's wonderful, but I'm not comparing myself to you or anybody else. So there's no need for you to tell me by me saying I'm an expert, it's not taking anything away from anybody else at all. Okay, so.
And basically, I just wanted to bring that up because you don't have any interest in a world record at this point, which I always thought in the past versions of Twin Galaxies that anybody who's in that position to keep things honest and truthful can't have a conflict of interest. They can't be like, for example, there was always things about, well, a referee shouldn't be able to.
Well, you're correct.
And I'm glad that you've taken that.
It goes beyond that. It goes beyond that. Let me be crystal clear about this. I cannot hold a record. Period. Anybody who works for Twin Galaxies cannot hold a record. I'm going to attempt to break records just to do them. But I can't be officially recorded. And that's just how it's going to be, and that's how it's going to remain because it's a conflict of interest for anybody who has anything to do with the system itself to be able to input things into it. So that's for clarity's purposes.
Yeah, I just wanted that clear before we start talking about all these, all the systems and all the. I know we have many questions, and we've kind of compiled them all tonight, and we're going to try to go in order. But if you have a question, please put it in chat. Jace will see it, and maybe he'll address it depending on where we're in the conversation tonight. Because I know there is a lot of questions, and you have answered a lot of questions so far. But I think more in a public setting here will make it more clear, and when you unveil the system and it's live, I think the questions will disappear at that point too. But.
Okay, so give me some questions. Rudy has a question up, but I'll answer that after I answer your first question.
Glenn, did you want to start, or do you want me to start?
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. Now, the way, for those of you who don't know, Jace has a approve, disapprove, or approve, not approved voting statute, and you can read up on that. And we'll get into that. But when you submit a record, there is a evidence package, and this has been the biggest, I guess, grievance that most people don't like about your system so far. I mean, it's not live, so you really can't judge it yet until it's live. But Twin Galaxies used to have these guidelines for what qualifies as evidence. Now that's kind of, by your new system, you're kind of doing away with that and letting the community decide what is good enough evidence.
Well,
my question is, why are you doing that?
All right, so
why do you trust us that much?
I
don't trust us.
Let me be clear about this. What was that? Well, Twin Galaxies is going to provide guidelines and recommendations for what adjudicating members can and should look for. It's going to say, it'll have a nice long list of here are the things to look out for, here are the things to consider. Here's historically what's been done. But these are guidelines, these are recommendations. It's going to be up to a verified voting member to decide whether or not what they are being presented with they view as a valid and true score performance. It's not, no matter what, you're either going to have a single individual who's dictating, well, this is how it's got to be, and making that judgment, or you're going to have a group of individuals making those judgments. Now, when you look at everything in our world, it's always a group that's deciding what is considered to be valid. Is the Higgs boson particle a valid particle? Well, the entire scientific community got together and decided that that was the case, not one single person. So it gets into this philosophical issue of what's considered a fact, what's considered, a valid thing. Twin Galaxies will absolutely provide all the information that it can in terms of the way that it looks at things and the way that it hopes that its voting members will look at it. But it's going to be up to each individual voting member to determine whether they think something's legit or not in their own right. And that's and what you're going to see is, depending on the category, depending on whether it's an arcade submission or a cartridge submission on a Nintendo or whatever, there's going to be different sort of viewpoints and expectations from those communities that are participating in that, because you're going to see different levels of expertise depending on, someone who knows everything about the dip switch settings on a missile command board may not know anything about whether a Nintendo score is valid. So they may or may not be as correct when they're trying to judge that sort of thing. So it's not being done away with. There is no change. The difference is the rules that Twin Galaxy had before, that they would give a referee to a single person to then judge whether or not they've been followed. I'm giving that to the voting members to judge whether it's been followed or not. There hasn't anything been disposed of. Did that make sense? Okay. Or did I miss anything?
No, that makes sense.
No, you're not taking anything away. You're just adding to. And
right.
If some of those things work, then they'll stay forward, and not that you get rid of stuff that wasn't working, but it just wouldn't be used quite as much for obvious reasons. So, to me, it seems like, and I could be wrong, this almost is kind of like, over the years, obviously, and as long as we've been involved with Twin Galaxies, even back in the day, the complaint always was no matter what, who was in control, they always just said, well, you guys aren't running it right. You guys aren't doing this right, you aren't doing that right. And it seems to me that you're kind of like, well, maybe they weren't, but you know what? Now it's up to you guys. Is that kind of what you were going with, the just complete open peer review, where now it's like, now it's kind of up to us whether or not we want this to run properly?
Well, look, this is a peer review process, but it's a highly, highly controlled one. It's not like any other peer review process that actually exists anywhere else.
It's not a popularity contest.
You cannot manipulate the system via popularity. It doesn't matter how much you dislike someone. If you try, this is looking for the most factual perception based on the evidence presented, and you're either rewarded for looking at it and making the right judgment, or you're penalized for making the wrong judgment. It's not about others in the context of your vote. If you want to be credible inside of the system, then you just have to actually be credible. Other interests about, oh, I'm just going to help my friend out, or I don't like this guy, it falls to the wayside, because it's not going to change the fact that if someone presents something that says the sky is blue, here's all the evidence that says it's blue, and you literally look at the evidence and it says it's blue, but you're like, oh, I don't like that guy, so I'm going to say that he's wrong. You're just going to, in the system, your vote is going to gravitate towards zero so fast that it's pointless. It's pointless to even do that. It's not. So the goal here.
You're taking emotion out of it.
It's mechanical. It's mechanical, right?
It's a highly logical algorithm, really. I mean, that's basically what it's based off of. No emotion should be involved. And when it comes to scoring anything, emotion should never be involved.
Well, yeah, you want it to be as clinical and as objective as possible, and you want to reward people for that clinicality. The other thing that I see in the chat are like people saying things like, oh, well, the community is not that smart, or the community is so small, and it's all this. Let me be clear about this. This system that we have can adjudicate anything. What it means is it's opening up adjudication for a number of platforms, a number of game types, a number of. So if you think that the community that exists today is going to stay at the same size, you are sorely mistaken. You are talking about a lot of people that are going to be coming in and participating. You're going to see dilution of the old sort of historic, cliques that exist, because
gatekeepers. Yeah.
Because when you're adding thousands of people into this system, it doesn't matter if you and your 10 buddies hate somebody. The 5,000 new people that got added last month don't even know who these people are. They're just looking at scores, they're looking at performances, and they're trying to build up their credibility as much as humanly possible in being right. So the focus, I understand that Twin Galaxies community for a long time has suffered, and I know that it's attacked itself, and I'm very aware of a lot of the long-running historical issues. And, Twin Galaxies is at fault for a lot of that. So this new era is going to bring in a lot of new activity, and if you want to be regarded as the best and be recognized by Twin Galaxies, then you're going to need to just put down some of the silliness and actually take what you're doing seriously. That's all there is to it, or not, and just you'll see how the system will work. You're not going to collude and be able to cheat the system. I really, really strongly recommend that you don't even try, because once you are caught even trying, you're going to get banned for life. The system will just do that. You don't want to even try. All you want to do is be honest in what you're doing. That's it. Now, I'm going to take a second. I'm going to look at all the chat that's flying by.
Sure.
Yeah, to try to answer questions.
Yeah,
if you guys see some good questions.
I'm trying to pick and choose here, too.
Okay, that'd be helpful if you keep an eye on the chat and pick and choose some of these questions, because I want to get everybody answered.
Here's one that came up. What happens if the community don't vote on a score? Let's say just too many submissions come in, or it's a game that doesn't pique interest.
Okay. So,
let me add one more part to that. Let's say it's a marathon run of 68 hours. How are we going to find people to really verify that properly?
Well, look, here's. I
ain't going to watch it. I'm going to tell you that.
Here's the thing. It's not about whether or not you like the game or have interest in it. It's about there is a submission that has come in, and it's an opportunity for you to build up your credibility score. And you want to just land on the right side of the adjudication, the winning side, right? So it's taking out some of the demotivation that, I don't want to watch a Puyan game or like what you want is the points out of it. you want the experience out of the experience points out of, you know, if you ever played an MMO, you know, you sit there killing low-level creatures to build up your experience points so you can do other things with that experience. So there's that. Secondly, is there is a submission to adjudication ratio. So you're never going to get into a scenario where there are more submissions than adjudications. It just can't happen. It load balances. People won't be able to submit until they adjudicate. And if all that's up there to adjudicate is 68-hour marathons, guess what? You need to adjudicate a 68-hour marathon because no submissions are coming in until it gets adjudicated. It's not going to... Historically, Twin Galaxies would get back-channeled, right? They'd get backlogged, and you'd be waiting, and then you get in these weird favoritism scenarios where someone gets adjudicated before someone else who submitted beforehand and all this other stuff. All that nonsense has to go out. When you come to Twin Galaxies, you want to be able to see who's the best at things. You want to know that if something got adjudicated in, you want to be able to look it up and say, oh, that made it in, that score is there, click that score. Here's the whole evidence package. Here's all the comments on that score itself. This is why it got adjudicated in. It's no longer just like some sort of question, right? So those two, you know, obviously once we launch the system, we're going to see what really works out and what really doesn't and how to change it. I'm not coming at this from an inflexible position other than the fact that I'm very, very focused on making sure that the scores we're getting are as credible as reasonably possible. And this sort of gets into one of the questions I saw Rudy mention, which starts getting into cracking open cartridges and all these other sorts of things. And this is what I'm going to tell you is you can take adjudication to ridiculous levels if you want to. If the community really wants to start demanding cracking cartridges open, looking at the physical soldering marks on the underside of an actual cartridge to see that there's been no certainly you're free to do that if you want to. What I believe is that that the community is going to set its own rational line of what it thinks is reasonable and what it thinks it's not reasonable. So if you start voting, let's say something comes in for a Nintendo game, and you're just going to vote no on it no matter what because they're not cracking the cartridge open, you better hope everybody else feels the same way. If they don't, what's going to happen is they're all going to vote yes if by any other measure it looks like a credible score. You'll vote no, and then when the adjudication comes in as yes, the people who voted yes are going to be awarded the credibility points, and you are going to be deducted. So you have to keep in mind, now certainly you're going to be able to add to the submission and say, look, I really want to vote no on this because he's not cracking the cartridge open. But other people will respond and say, well, I think that's excessive, and we don't want to get into that. It's going to find an equilibrium. You've got to let the community and the adjudicators find that equilibrium where they all agree. I know this already works because you see it happening in the Donkey Kong community, and you see it happening in any other. It's like, why is Robbie Lakeman the Donkey Kong record holder, so to speak? Well, they all agree. Okay.
Yeah, they are. And when it comes down to this, you know, you have photographs as one of your evidence. Photographs. The community is gonna go. You can't. I mean, I gotta be honest that the community is gonna agree on this right now. That no one's gonna just accept a photograph because we don't know if somebody put a Game Genie in to get that score.
Or just
you know,
Photoshop the photo.
Exactly. By saying those things in your comments will build, you know, everybody's awareness about, oh, you need this type of proof or use this type of guideline because everybody else made everybody else aware of it. You know, I just made it right there. You can't use a photograph because I don't know if you use Game Genie or not.
Well, that's true. Although
that's just my thought.
But here's the thing.
You know?
Let me ask you this: if you've spent a lifetime building up your credibility as a human being and on the site, and everybody knows who you are, and they know that you are not going to cheat ever, maybe for that person who built that, they can submit a photograph, and everybody will say, well, in his case, I believe that it's a valid score. It can happen. It could happen. All I'm saying is that's okay.
Yeah.
But you want to give people the ability to build up what they are, who they are, both as a player, both as an adjudicator. You're going to get experts in different fields. You're going to get, and all of it this time in the system is established as records. When you have a credibility of 50,000 on Twin Galaxies, it's not something that got pulled out of someone's ass. There's actual living record of the choices that you made across a number of adjudications that account for why you're so credible in that space. And it's, there are other things that Twin Galaxies is going to start bringing to bear, which is other ways to get value for your credibility that has nothing to do with adjudication. But, baby steps. Let's get the system working. Let's get scores coming in. Let's get players understanding. Let the communities of each platform, of each types of submissions, figure out really what those standards are going to be for them. Twin Galaxies will provide the historical rules and the historical recommendations, but that's what they are. We've got to collectively advance. We've got to advance our game as players and as adjudicators, and we want to be sensitive to these things being credible, but we don't want to be ridiculous. But I don't want to tell you what those are. I don't want to make anybody do anything that they don't want to do. It doesn't work. That just doesn't work. What I want to do is set up a system that provides the tools and enforce the tools of that system consistently, so you can count on it. You'll know Twin Galaxies is never going to do that. Because a lot of the problems that we've had as Twin Galaxies in the community in the past is just a shifty structure. It's hard, it could potentially treat one person different than another. And when that starts happening, when influence like that can start to come at play, it just starts throwing everything out of whack, And so all of that is over. That's just finished. I want to bring the recognition to players that they deserve, and we have here all the tools at Twin Galaxies to do that. I have the relationships with the media, with the various sponsors over time to help do that. But the first thing is we need to have a very solid, stable, credible system that's dealing with the adjudication in a way that everybody feels comfortable with.
Okay. Good.
So what other questions? I'm missing all the chat. I'm missing the chat, so I need you guys to...
Actually, we haven't handled it in a while. Glenn, do you have something? I know you have something to touch on. I know you're...
to kind of go back, and we'll use Puyan as an example. Let's say a Puyan score comes in, and it needs adjudication. And I'm not being a Puyan expert, I would kind of feel uncomfortable adjudicating that score. But let's say I watch it, and I give it the thumbs up, like everything looks good. And then out of the woodwork later, a bunch of Puyan experts notice something that I probably would have never noticed because I'm not an expert of the game. And I made the wrong decision voting it up, and later on the majority goes to vote it down. Would that ruin my credibility because of an honest mistake, of me not being an expert of the game?
Okay, so let me be clear. So you voted it up, everybody voted it up, and it actually went into the database, right? So that's the theoretical issue. And then later evidence comes up that shows that this was a cheat or that there's something wrong with it. Is that what you're suggesting? And then what happens there? Is that the question?
Yeah.
That was one of my questions.
Okay, so this gets into addressing something that the old Twin Galaxies almost never could deal with, which is, what if a ref approved a score and it went in, and later you find out that that was bullshit somehow, but there was no system to even remotely deal with that at all. So now this is gonna touch upon the historical and questionable scores issue, and how
this is almost like an appeals process,
and how you deal with that. Okay. Now I had read, or someone pointed me to a post that Kat Despira had made about how putting historical scores, making it so that they can be questioned, is sacrilegious and all you're going to get is a whole bunch of people who are trying to collude to just get rid of old scores because they can't achieve them and vote it out and all these sorts of things. And that's a problem, okay? So let me be clear about this. Just as you have to have evidence that substantiates a score going into the database, you have to have evidence that a score has to come out. Do you understand? If you look at a score from 1983 and you go, oh, well, that's impossible, that score is way too high. The fact that you think that means nothing to me. It means nothing to the system. Prove it. Prove that that score is bunk. Because just you saying it with your lips doesn't mean anything. We have to trust what the past says unless you can evidentially prove that it needs to be changed. We will be setting up a system that allows that to happen. It's not, but at the end of the day, if someone's going to come out of the database, there has to be evidence for it. Not just a bunch of people with their lips moving, all collectively saying, well, this has to come out, even though there's no evidence whatsoever. And if the argument is, well, there's no way to have evidence for it, there's just no way, it's impossible. Well, guess what? Then it's in the database. Because in the absence of any evidence whatsoever, pure conjecture is not enough to move the database. I have to trust the historic people who did all that work that what they put in there was correct unless you can prove it otherwise. If you go, oh, look, this Atari 2600 game, we have programmatic proof that the registers can't even count that number that high. It's impossible, yeah, right? Perfect. Then yeah, that's actual evidence. That's evidence. That's like, oh, well, no shit. That score's got to come out because it's impossible. And when the score comes out, it will come out in an asterisk type of form, and it will link to the evidence. So people can always look and see, this is why this score is not there anymore, because it's been factually proven that it cannot have happened. Impossible. Does that make sense?
Good.
Right? So in Glen's example, where he's like discovered a new thing about Puyan, and something got voted in, that evidence will then go into the review process of the questionable score part. It's a separate process. And no, you're not going to be deducted on credibility. You're not going to be deducted on anything for that. But that score obviously will have to be addressed, and the evidence that would be provided would address it. So going in or coming out, you need to substantiate why this action is being taken place. It's no longer just lips of flapping. Does that make sense?
Jace, it's just...
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
Jace, I was thinking when it comes to the credibility rating, what do you mean by that? I know it's explained and stuff like that, but for the base example of it, because to me it almost sounds like your credit score to me.
Well, in a way,
go up and down.
In a way, you can think of it as money, but it's really credibility. Okay, so so you look at an adjudication and you see you're presented with this Pac-Man score, and you decide there's really only, as an adjudicator, all you're ever faced with is, do you believe this claim? Is it valid or not? Do you believe it? This person is saying I did this, and they're giving you all this evidence. Accept it or reject it. Now, that's all you'll ever see. You'll not see who voted. You're not going to see how many votes it takes. You're not going to see how long the adjudication will remain over. There is no information to you other than, here is the score claim, here is the evidence, do you think it's valid or not? And when you pick, let's say, yeah, I think it's valid, and let's say it's Monday, right? You go, oh, I think it's valid. Then Wednesday rolls along, and you see that adjudication is still ongoing, and then you look at the thread. And now in the thread, there's like 5 messages, and there's like 4 people who are experts, and they go, you know what, I don't think this is legit because, at 3 minutes and 21 seconds into the video, there's this glitch, and I know how that glitch might have been caused. So I'm calling shenanigans potentially. You, who voted accept, can look up and see, oh, my vote is currently sitting as accept. Based on this feedback I'm seeing here, I'm going to change it now to reject. because the adjudication's not closed. So you're always able to assimilate as much information about the adjudication before it's finalized, right? And then the adjudication will close. You won't know when that closes or what the criteria is that closed it. All you'll know is that it has met the criteria to close. When that happens, the system then calculates whether you were on the correct side of the adjudication. And let's say in this case, it was rejected. So you're like, man, I'm glad I changed it because it got rejected. So at that point, the system calculates how many credibility points you get specifically for your action. It's not related to other people. And when the system is looking at things like your general site activity, how many, like, did you post something and did it get a lot of thanks? It's factoring in, besides the base credibility that you get just for being right, it's also looking at your overall participation inside of the Twin Galaxies universe for basically bonus points. And those bonus points relate to credible contributions that you've made to the site. Not just basic activity, but there are things within the site that actually show that you've made this contribution and it was helpful and credible because others have validated it through other systems that exist on the site. And so that kind of acts as like a subtle kicker, subtle, not huge, subtle kicker on your credibility calculation. Then those points are awarded to you and it goes into your total credibility score. Now, your credibility score affects how powerful your vote is in an adjudication. So it's not one for one. Your credibility is not, if you have a credibility of 1,000 points and someone has a credibility of 50 points, when you both vote on an adjudication, you're moving the vote more than they are. Why? Because you have built up credibility in adjudication more so than someone who has 50. So this is why it's important for your credibility to constantly be growing, because you're becoming more and more of an expert at what you're doing, and your expertise is valuable when you're spending time adjudicating something. And there's a whole computation that takes place in the system that creates a bell curve. So it's always looking at everybody's total credibility. It's like an economy. To prevent inflation and to prevent disproportionate breaks and all this other stuff, it's computing against the entire pool. So you're never going to, like, so real experts will emerge. Real ones that have proven that they know what the hell they're talking about. And if someone just wants to click around on an adjudication and whatever, and they don't give a crap, it will reflect. They're not going to impact an adjudication the same way someone who gives a crap does. So,
okay.
I hope that made sense.
That makes sense. I guess my follow-up questions to the adjudication. I don't want to adjudicate anything. I just want to submit a score. Am I shit out of luck at that point?
Well,
you'll have to adjudicate.
You'll be able to submit one thing, because everybody gets one.
Okay.
After that point, you need to adjudicate if you want to submit more.
Okay.
That's just the bottom line.
I mean, I have no personal issue with it. I'm just saying that's the
no, I know. I know.
Some of the consensus I've got. So, Weeby would only submit probably one score.
What game do you think he would submit it on?
Donkey Kong Jr.
Yeah,
Just Donkey. No, Popeye.
I appreciate everybody who wants everything done for free for them and they just get whatever it is that they want. I mean, sure, of course. Mm-hmm. I mean, I want Twin Galaxies not to cost any money at all. But that's not going to, like, to me, right? That's not going to happen. Do you know how much the bandwidth costs just for the site now? It goes on and on and on. I'm not asking anybody to pay anything ever. So if it's a little too much to help to adjudicate someone else's thing in the community, and all you really want to do, you want recognition from the community, but you don't want to give anything back. What you want to do is take and just have everybody say, oh, how awesome you are, and then you're out. Well, I can't help you. I can't build a system that can support something like that.
No, and
Great.
from what I gather, you're actually trying to create an actual community.
Right.
Not just like a message board that allows people to be dicks to one another.
Yeah, that's... Yeah.
I mean, to me, really, to me, it's almost... It sounds complicated because it is, obviously. The algorithm, I'm assuming, is an incredibly complicated process. But the basic gist to me of this is you've created a system that just has the very simple purpose of don't be a dick, you guys. If you're not a dick and you're actually, logical about your process, it'll work fine.
Star Critus. Enemies could rise and downvote scores unfairly. No, they can't. That actually can't happen. Well, they could try. This is what I say. They can try, and it will not work, and they will wind up with lifetime bans. So they can try, but I'm telling you, you're not going to defeat this system. There's a reason it has taken months and months of design and engineering to do this. I promise you, you're not going to simply call up your friends and manipulate the system. I encourage you to try, though, because everybody who tries will be banned out of the system, and I can clear those people out and not have to worry about it. They'll just be cleared straight out.
Sweet, dude.
No, I agree.
This is gonna be awesome.
It's gonna
be the first two. So we should race this. Who's gonna be the first kicked down?
So, JC, you think we probably couldn't submit this
kill screen
of Zookeeper here with Echo on it?
Well, you could submit it. I don't know if they'll.
Have you ever seen it?
The peer review. Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen a kill screen that someone has posted up, but not the real kill screen.
You haven't gotten that. You haven't saw Echo for himself.
Okay.
New machine. Okay.
Wait, Jessquick has this paragraph. I have a question about glitches. I use a trick in a game that I'm trying to make a record on, but I cannot tell if it's a glitch or not. It doesn't seem right to use this trick. At the same time, I feel like it's needed for smoother gameplay because sometimes I trigger this trick by accident. My question is, who decides what is a glitch and what's not? See, now here's a perfect example.
Yes, this is perfect timing.
You would take what you just said, Jessquick, and you would put it in your submission. You would straight up say, this is what I'm doing. I think that this is valid. Here's my score. What do you guys think? Here's my performance. People will consider it. People will consider what you're presenting, and they'll say, you know what? I think that's cool. That's all right. That works. Or they'll say, you know what? That glitch is out, dude. I can't. If you're going to play that way, it ruins the spirit of the game. The review process will produce the answer for that.
Okay. Now that person won't be penalized for not being approved, right? They won't be labeled as a cheater or anything if something like that doesn't get approved, right?
They're not going to be labeled as a cheater if they're specifically calling out what they're doing.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
Like, and you know, there's two different kinds of there's different levels of cheating, arguably. Okay? There is point blank, straight up misrepresenting what you're doing. That will get you a lifetime ban. No one wants that. That's out. Why don't you send it into highscore.com? Go there. Then there's doing something that you think is legitimate, but other people view it as unfair or kind of cheating. And there's no way for you to have known that. That's a different sort of thing that can be sorted out.
Good. Where do I want to go here?
If people agree or disagree on things like glitches, can records be placed in categories with glitches? Yeah, I mean, look, tracks can be created to segment out if an issue like that becomes significant enough, right? So so tracks can be created. But the reason you want to avoid lots of track creation is because it really dilutes accomplishment in a particular game. It's like, who's really, really the best, right? It's hard to say when you have 8 different number ones. So you want to have some limitations there, but you want to do what's logical. And I hope you get the sense that I am trying to approach this logically. I don't have some kind of agenda to, my agenda is to make the Twin Galaxies scoreboard the place for scores to be, period. That's it. So my motivation, and to make it so that when you hold the #1 position, it's worth something, that it's valuable, that people give a crap. So I have to keep an eye on, you don't want to make 20 tracks for something, even though you theoretically could.
You could, yeah, exactly. You got to find out, and that's where I think the community will make, what they actually want to see, or what skill is involved in a video game that somebody wants to see. We could make a ridiculous thing. Who can jump on a Koopa the most times in one level? I mean, come on, it's a measurement.
94.
It's a measurement.
Well, that's okay. So
worthy?
Let's talk about that for a second. Okay, so.
Okay.
I cannot officially say, I'm not saying this officially, so know that. However, I have been in lengthy discussions with Guinness, like for months now. Okay, they've been here. They have been all up and through the adjudication system to understand it. I can tell you that the adjudication system that Twin Galaxies has is a superior system to just about every other record, public-facing record system that exists. So one of the conversations was the kinds of records that Guinness keeps, the kinds of records that Twin Galaxies keeps. Twin Galaxies does not necessarily have an interest in keeping certain kinds of records in video games that Guinness does keep. They have some that are kind of fun. They involve video games, but they're not score-related. Right? Like how many Xbox titles can you balance on your right hand? Stuff like that. So,
record setter almost type stuff.
Should in theory Twin Galaxies and Guinness be working together very closely, very, 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 very soon? In theory, there will be some dividing line between certain kinds of records. That will be sort of Twin Galaxies' domain and sort of Guinness's. But in theory, if we were working together, all of Twin Galaxies' records will basically be eligible and considered Guinness record standard upon entry into our database instantly. So, and then it gets into what, in theory, goes into the book every year. And so forth and so on. But just know that, yes, I have been having lots and lots and lots of discussions with Guinness, both the United States and the UK, and they're wonderful people, and that's all I can say at this current time. The rest is all theory. That's all I'm saying.
All right. That's good enough for now.
I guess it kind of goes on that subject too. This is just more personal. I'm going to do my own question here. Everything else has been more for the community.
Selfish.
I'm going to. This is more future, but you got the system all set up for us being verified. This might be something that's an issue for you later on down the road, and I completely understand for you. What about multiplayer verification? Multiplayer games, 2-player scores, 4-player scores, etc. Is there any plans for that?
Are you talking about tracks for that, or?
Well, there are already tracks involved, but I guess how would we... Is there something in the database that's going to allow us to submit those scores to separate people?
Functionally, the way it works is Twin Galaxies needs to set up a track for something, and that's it. Our adjudication system can adjudicate anything. I mean, the way that it functions is, we can put a picture of your face and say, is this Mike? And then people can vote or not. So it's not. So the advantage of our type of adjudication system is it literally can adjudicate anything, and keep a living record of it always. So dealing with 2-player, 4-player, 6-player, 8-player, it doesn't. That part is not the hurdle. The hurdle will be, should a track be set up for something specifically? The way that you'll submit to Twin Galaxies is very simple. You'll go to the database. I don't know if you've been there, but if you click it, you can pull up a score, and right there on a particular track, it has the word submit. So when you click that submit button, it knows you're submitting for that track for that platform right then and there. It autofills all that information, and all you're left with doing is entering in your score or time and your evidence package, and you can upload the video. That's it. Boom. Super, super, super simple. And then it hits the submission and adjudication system, and the verified adjudicators can have at it. So, this is designed to be as accessible as humanly possible. Can you submit a high score without sound? You can, look, you can submit whatever you want. You have to see what the community is going to do to adjudicate on you. Right? I'm not like, the one thing that you cannot submit is a video that has copyrighted music in it. Don't do it. The video will be blocked. It will be a piece of evidence you can't supply. So
no Crazy Taxi.
So as long as you don't have copyrighted music in your video, the system shouldn't block you.
Okay. So actually, Nick, you bring up a really good point there with Crazy Taxi. That'll get flagged immediately. So that's something the adjudicators will have to realize, especially with newer games. You can use Grand Theft Auto 5 because me and Glenn are doing a speed run on it, right? There's a lot of copyrighted music. They turn off the music, which you can do on a lot of games.
Yeah, if you can, but I'll say this. I know all the guys at all the companies that make these games, so part of what I will be spending time doing is getting clearance from them so that we can, because all of these companies want Twin Galaxies to track their scores. So, I'm in a position where I can make those phone calls and say, like, look, you need to make sure that we're in the clear on this. So, and so I'm gonna, generally though, people like to play with like their music playing in the background and all this other stuff. Wear headphones. That's all.
That's good. Glenn, I don't want to leave you out.
Nintendo?
That pretty much answered my question. Like, there is a lot of people that do like to listen to music in the background.
Yeah,
but I've been recently doing speedruns of DuckTales, and my videos have been getting flagged for the music that's in the game.
Yeah. So, also you gotta realize I will be building consensus across the video game industry from these companies so that Twin Galaxies is exempt from a lot of that, but I want to protect from both sides. Look, there's a lot of support for what I'm trying to do from game companies. Because these people who run these companies know me personally, because we all grew up in the industry together. So it's easier conversation to have than, say, when Walter would call or something like that. But aside from the, I want to make sure all the questions are answered about adjudication, because there's no secrets. But I'll also answer any other Twin Galaxies questions that people might have. Things about the past, things about the future, whatever you're wondering, I will answer. So, what do you want to know? Anybody?
Yep. No? Anybody in the chat?
You don't really want me and Mike to ask our ridiculous
questions? No.
Yeah, go for it. Bring it.
No. You got one, Nick?
Well, yeah, obviously. If for those of you who watch the show know that a common segment on the show is we, not just me, we like to talk about Echo the Dolphin. Do you think Echo the Dolphin is the greatest video game system, or greatest video game ever, or just the greatest video game character ever?
No, the greatest video game ever is Jaws on the NES.
Oh, nice.
You like that one? No.
Josh just eats Echo in the first board.
We actually shown artwork of that. Yeah. There's actually a picture of Jaws. Actually got the best Echo, which brains can only get you so far in this world.
Yeah. There was a question. There was a good question asked, which was, do we only accept like #1 position submissions, or what's the limit and all this other stuff? So the database as engineered now can literally keep track of all scores, as many as get submitted. So we can have #1 to number 10,000 in our records. Another thing that's coming down the pike, after a few other things that we're working on, is submit a submission for a skill rating. Okay, instead of a record, instead of here's my score, where do I place in the record, there's, hey, I'm not really trying to go for a record, but watch my gameplay and give me some sense of how good you think I am on a certain scale. And what that will start to do is create what will eventually evolve into a video game player athletic index for genres and for categories. And you'll be able to compare players who've never played the same game, their relative video game skills against each other. You'll be able to do statistical analysis to be like, what would happen if John Petrick met Rudy Ferretti in a game of the Smurfs on the Atari 800. And so you'd be able to have some really fun stuff, but that will also start to lend itself towards very specific annual awards, in sort of annual award shows and things like that, where you can maybe win your gold Walter Day.
Yes.
Like the Cat's Mike Awards.
Yeah. And then there's stuff even further out, because I'm going to try to explain this. It's going to take me a while to implement this, but basically, I believe people who achieve in video games, our society needs to recognize the achievement that it is. They don't understand how hard some of these things are, and they don't reward, society doesn't reward players for these levels of achievement. Like there's been more people who've gone around the moon.
That's why me and Nick do our show. That's why we've been doing the show for the past 4
years.
Yeah,
so how does Twin Galaxies do that other than getting some media attention? Well, I want you to imagine like the equivalent of a Twin Galaxies club card, okay? And when you go to pay like a 7-Eleven, you go and you bring all of your sodas and your drinks up, and then they ring it up and they say it's $25. Then you give them your Twin Galaxies club card and they run it through, and that actually accesses the Twin Galaxies database, and it says that you are the #3 record holder for Donkey Kong. And because of a deal that Twin Galaxies has with 7-Eleven, you're going to get 35% off your purchase, anything that you buy at 7-Eleven, because you are the #3 holder of Donkey Kong. So you have to understand that this is something that's very real, and it's something that's very achievable and well within my wheelhouse. It's worth it. It's worth it to 7-Eleven to cut a deal like that, because how many #3s are there in the world?
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
Maybe 1,000 people across 1,000 games or something like that, right?
Yeah, maybe I should stop destroying Donkey Kong motherboards.
Yeah, dude.
I mean, I burn one every week.
There is an upside.
I'm trying to bring up the value of Donkey Kong machines. Oh, maybe I should use them now.
Right. So there's a. I can clearly see how if you're the #1 world record holder in a particular title. Let me give you another example. Like I'm friends with various celebrities, right? Like, and I like using Rick Fox as an example because he plays a sport. And wherever he goes, he gets to cash in his celebrity. Why? Because people recognize him and they know, oh, he's Rick Fox and he did this. And so, he gets the best table, he gets free food, whatever those things are. Well, if you're #1 in, Dig Dug, no one knows that. It's like, how do you... So I want to create a way for that value, the same celebrity value, to translate. And I think I can do it with like a Twin Galaxies type of card, right? You cut a deal with Visa or whatever, a company that specializes in producing those cards and has the database and all that stuff, and we build the back-end access. But then you're #1 in Dig Dug, and then you walk into a restaurant and you get the bill and you put that card down there, and your meal is like 90% already paid for because of it. It's a way for your celebrity to translate to actual benefit to you as a player. All that time you spent mastering your game and being #1 actually has amounted to something. It's a very real thing that everybody will understand, and it's worth it to companies and advertisers to get involved at that level, and it does not distort or taint Twin Galaxies adjudication or credibility and it doesn't basically sell out or commercialize Twin Galaxies. It is for the players. It's not for Twin Galaxies. It's for the players. All of video game industry is set up to reward games in themselves with Game of the Year, or the developers with Developer of the Year, but it's the players that are making everything valuable. It's the players that are buying the games. It is the players that are talking about everything. What kind of appreciation do they get? Zero. Zero is what they get. And I've had it. Obviously, I've had it because I've acquired Twin Galaxies and I'm going through an entire restructure and I'm spending more money than has ever been spent on all of Twin Galaxies from the beginning. So I'm telling you that I'm quite serious about this, and I want the community to stop attacking itself, to stop. A lot of this is because of all the despair and all these promises in the past and all this stuff. I get it. But now is the time, I'm quite serious, for the community to say, all right, you know what? I'm going to believe once more. I'm going to, all of that disappointment that I've suffered in the past, and very few people will understand that disappointment, but let me tell you, I understand it. All of that, I'm gonna risk my emotional well-being again, and I'm gonna get behind this, and I'm gonna participate because I believe. I don't know what else I can do to help people make that transition. Some people might forever be stuck in the past. I don't know. All I'm going to tell you is that this train is going to go, and it's going to get big, and it's going to be inclusive of not just the core community, which a lot of people refer to as the originals or anything like that. They're very valuable, but it's going to get much, much bigger. A lot more participants, a lot more games, a lot more inclusion. We can think about this. The adjudication system can adjudicate a mobile phone game. It is capable of adjudicating, and there can be a community around how that is done, because obviously it's challenging, right? So, but how many people are playing mobile Candy Crush or something like that? And wouldn't it be great to be recognized for that? So it's going to be expansive. And in theory, if Twin Galaxies and Guinness are working together, the press releases, the upshot of that involvement, once again, is going to go out to the masses. And the masses are going to be interested, and they're going to come to Twin Galaxies. And guess what? For the first time, it's going to be able to adjudicate anything that the masses want to bring in to adjudicate. It's going to be able to answer the call of, hey, I want to participate, how do I do it? And everything's going to be super simple to do it. So it's going to have an impact on how we roll forward. And the system, thankfully now, it's going to load balance itself between submissions and adjudications. So I want to welcome everybody who gives a crap about video game playing, who understands the fun. See, that's the thing, Mike, is chasing scores is fun. The whole thing of this is about having fun.
Fun, yeah.
I want to put the fun,
and that's been lost for so long.
God, it kills me dead. So understand that I'm interested in getting that fun back. It was so fun to go to the arcades and play, and to all of that. It's there and can be captured once again, and there's just this enormous opportunity. And this, to me, is what esports is. Esports is what Twin Galaxies is. Things like League of Legends is a subcategory of esports.
Yep.
The team play and all that other stuff, it's great and it's wonderful, but it's not very approachable for your mom, right? She's never going to watch a League of Legends tournament or a Dota tournament and go, oh, I want in. That's not going to happen. But she might play Bejeweled or Flappy Birds or something, and imagine that. And she can participate now in the community at large, and she can. That's fun and it's interesting. And so that's what I'm trying to do as the custodian of Twin Galaxies.
And that's, I just want to bring on the thing. Well, Mike, you always stick by Twin Galaxies. That's why Twin Galaxies is such a great thing. It brings everybody in on different levels. That movie King of Kong was the best and worst thing that ever happened to Twin Galaxies. But what it did for everybody, and goes, I can have that little piece of history. I can be a little bit of something. Like you just said, your mom could be the best on Bejeweled, or someone can be the best on NHL 94. That little piece is what Twin Galaxies brings us all together, and what makes it really fun. And that's why I've always stuck by it. Just my little personal thing here, I guess.
The original mission statement is a wonderful mission statement. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm getting MAME questions in here, and
yeah, I wanted to bring that up.
I'm going to bring it up because
on that or
okay, let me be clear, because there's clearly a misunderstanding. Let's back up. I have an engineering background. I can program a computer in 5 different languages. There's nothing mysterious about an INP file at all, or MAME itself. I understand it completely. No one's going to sit there and tell me what an INP file can or cannot do. I understand Wolfmane. I understand the differences between all the different versions. So let me be clear about that. So when I'm talking about emulation, I know what I'm talking about. Now, and even a Wolfmane INP file can be modified. I know I can look at that thing and I can do it. And I'm not even like Captain Super Hacker McProgrammer. An IMP file is useful. I agree. It is a useful piece of information to have along with all of the rest of the evidence. A video performance is also useful. There's been some concern about INP files. You are able to, in your submission, attach an INP file to your submission. You can provide it. It will be there for adjudicators to utilize if they want to and consider as part of your evidence package, along with video. I highly, highly recommend you submit video and not just an IMP file. Do both. I recommend everybody, when you're doing a submission, provide all that you can, everything that you just can. If you can't, then you can't. If you can, then do it. It's just whatever you can. You know,
do whatever you can to prove your worth.
Like that's it.
Some people say, well, you gotta. I hear from some people I should have a camera on my TV and I should show up hooking up my system and turning on the power button to make sure I'm using the right console. Do that. If you do that, so will other people. And the more people who do that, the credibility will go up and there'll be reasons behind it. Or some people say, do a Twitch stream with a camera on me so they know who I'm the actual person playing the actual game on the direct capture. Do it. If you do that, so will everybody else. So it's kind of, everybody needs to, participate in a very, I can't think of the word right now, but not organized,
cohesive
altogether. Altogether, if we all prove our worth on a higher level, then so does everybody else.
All right, Shadow Clone, first of all, hello, Bojangles, there's your shout out. Shadow Clone wants to know if we're going to make it so people can only vote once, are you going to make it so people can't make multiple accounts? Are you going to lock their IP after voting once? Okay, so number one, only verified users can vote. Now, verified users are users that we have identified, we have their phone number, we have their full name, and we have their address. And what's going to happen rapidly when we start going through the verified users to triple and double check these accounts, which will happen constantly, anybody who's not verified will immediately lose their verified access. Their IPs are part of it, but there could be more than one person living at a place that shares the same IP, so you don't want to block that out. But the people who are voting are real people who have really stepped up and volunteered their information, and Twin Galaxies will have it. This is important because the records that they make, in theory, if there's a relationship with Guinness, though that's the name that's going to go into the Guinness Book of World Records. That's why we need to have real names. You cannot be Mr. X in the Guinness Book of World Records, theoretically. So everybody will have one account. If we find somebody who has created more than one account, and we have ways of determining that over time, it will take time, they will get lifetime banned. It's just that simple. So they can play with that, and whatever they hope to get out of that, that's great. But just understand that lifetime bans from the system, there's no coming back from that. I highly recommend that you do not try to game the system. Some people are going to try, and when they get banned, they will find that there is no way back. Twin Galaxies is not a public company. It is not a utility. It is a private organization, and it doesn't have to do anything that it doesn't want to do. So if it bans you...
It is an LCC, if I'm correct, right, Jace?
Nope. It's not even that. It is actually a division underneath HD Films.
I am highly impressed. I was under the impression it was an LCC. Congratulations, good sir.
So it is not going to be subject to the whims of any sort of outside source. So don't get banned. Just don't do it. Because I'm telling you, it's going to be for life. Because if I unban someone who's got a lifetime ban, guess what? I got to do that for everybody else. Not going to. I don't even need that kind of hassle. So once that happens, you're out. Go play on RecordSetter or highscores.com. Go somewhere else. So my recommendation is just have one account. Just be on the up and up. That's why people are at Twin Galaxies anyway. They want a place that's valid where they can submit their stuff and know that everybody's serious about what they're doing. There's enough clown situations elsewhere. That's why you come to Twin Galaxies. If you want to go horse around, just do it somewhere else. This system is, I mean, that's just where I'm coming from on it. What are my thoughts on the portable gaming console culture? And then the text left. I couldn't get to the end of the question. Go. Rudy wants to address and ask a few questions. Rudy, feel free to ask questions.
I guess here I'm just gonna go real quick. What about Twin Galaxies has kind of been shut down for 2 or 3 years. What's the process going to be for like new scores? How is, for example, a Wii U game? There's no Wii U in the Twin Galaxies database. How is that going to evolve?
Okay, so now you're talking. That's the creation of new tracks and platforms issue.
Yep.
Okay.
Not there yet,
my answer to that is I don't have a complete answer to that. I've been just focused on trying to get what was there up and running and functional and going before adding new things to it. But in the end, I want Twin Galaxies to basically add all new games as they come out and have a process of determining with the community what tracks are important to start out with, right? And have some sort of grace period from the time that a game comes out to, you know, how many months goes by before, okay, now we're taking scores because people have developed enough experience on that particular game to have a reasonable conversation about what tracks make sense for that game. Because you just don't want to come up with, you know, stuff that doesn't matter. You want it to be You want it to be legitimate tracks that make sense in the context of that game. So you can't just brand new game comes out and the next day here are the tracks. That's not going to be comprehensive or thoughtful. There's going to be a time delay between a brand new game and an actual track creation, so that when the Twin Galaxies tracks come out, there's been discussion and there's been some thought in terms of what those initial tracks are.
I know you're not to that point. Is that going to be something on your end, or is it going to be similar to the adjudication where it's a community type of thing? Are you going to be setting those? Is like Twin Galaxies going to set that, be the commissioner on that?
Yes,
or is that going to be passed on down?
I think there's going to be the community is going to be consulted, and Twin Galaxies is going to decide what tracks it's going to track. And at the start. Then once it's been going for a while, if additional tracks need to be added, they can be community oriented from that point on. But Twin Galaxies is going to take a position on track creation and what platforms it tracks. And it also is going to take a position on scores that are removed. So the big difference between scores going in and scores going out is scores will go in on almost an automated basis. Once it meets the criteria, if it gets adjudicated in, it's going to go in. When it comes to removing scores, it will be the same evidentiary process, but the difference will be, let's say something actually gets voted to be.
Yeah.
Does the stream go down?
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
Jace, may I ask those questions now, or
Yeah.
you still talking?
Yeah, go ahead.
I didn't want to interrupt you.
Well, wait a minute. Rudy, give me 10 seconds because I'm going to get the stream back up.
Okay.
There's somebody pretending to be PSP.
Oh my god, it's total chaos.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Carrie Swidecki.
I know that, but still.
Is it back up now?
I don't know. I'm reloading.
Not on our end yet.
I'll see. We'll be right back. That's all I see.
All right, he's working on it.
Hey, Jace, did you get any thought to anything similar to keeping scores like arena ranked matches in various MMOs or MOBAs?
Well,
I know we're talking about classic gaming, but
well, no,
it's so many tournaments that involve such things lately.
It's not. We're not talking about classic gaming, but we're talking about measurement, and it's very difficult in games that have no measurement to artificially create a measurement that's relevant.
We'll have Rudy ask his question.
Would you agree that there are allowable mods that are created, say, by Curse and Zappos and whatnot, that could be utilized in such a way that, with a little bit of tweaking here and there, using your programming skills and various skills of people and knowledge,
right now we're not.
But we could make something similar to that? Or is it just too far out of the realm of possibility?
Well, I mean, anything's possible if there's enough of a community interest in it. But for right now, it's going to prioritization-wise, I'm just focused on reestablishing the fundamentals first.
We're talking about like 10th on the list.
So, Xander, are we back up?
I'm out.
Okay, we're up, Rudy.
Hey.
Okay.
Go ahead and ask your question, Rudy.
So, Jace, I have several, simple concerns and questions, and I just wanted, your feedback, and I wanted you to tell me, what you plan to do with these things. They may sound tedious, but it could mean the difference between, in my eyes, of cheating and, of course, doing something legit.
Go ahead.
Now, my first thing is, there's something I discovered years ago, and I mentioned this on my show. I was the first one to discover it. I know I was, because every time I brought it up to somebody, they were like, what does that mean? My biggest concern here is, and somebody said in the chat, well, until you can prove flash on MUs, it won't matter. Yes, it will, because here's the thing, Jace. Say, for instance, and this can be done on any console except for modernized consoles. Say I'm playing an NES game, on my NES, right?
Yeah.
All I have to do is change the cart board, which is very easy to do, and put an MU in there, which I could modify the game slightly to enough to make it look like I'm just better at the game and it's just easier. And even worse than that, I can make a flash just by not doing the 10 seconds of dead air. I can go in, change the settings, wait the 10 seconds of dead air with the recording, right? Hold the reset button down, after I did all my settings and cheats and glitches, let go of the reset button, and it looks like I powered on the game. Now, with a camcorder, you can't cheat the system because now you see the wires, you see the board, you see the cart, you see the system. So what are we going to do to eliminate that when I just told you the very simple secret of holding in the reset button that looks like I powered on the game when in fact it was on the whole time, and I put my settings in and changed the whole game around?
Okay. Well, the first thing is that holding down the reset button is like, I'm surprised that not everybody knows about that. That's like one of the, back when the Nintendo came out, that's how you totally just fooled your friends.
Right, well, we're talking about for real scores now, not for fun, you know what I mean?
Well, listen, this is the thing, is there is an infinite amount, well, ask Lance Armstrong. You can do things to try to cheat the system. Aside from holding the reset button down, aside from altering the ROMs themselves, there are other things that you can actually do, especially in home consoles, that can make the product easier for you. And there's things you can do even in new consoles. There has to be, the community has to make a decision as to what the threshold level is of what they're going to be okay with. Because you can make it so tedious, you can't ever fully escape the fact that if someone wants to spend enough time and money, they can get around and try to fool a performance.
Right.
You just can't escape that. So you get into a situation of at what level are you going to sort of try to hold the line? Now, I'm not going to try to dictate what that level is. I think that you expressing and explaining some of these things, alerting people to how easy some of these things are, I think will help educate people and keep their eyes open at looking at some of this stuff. But ultimately, whenever you get away from, the second you step away from a classic arcade machine, which even that can be manipulated if you want to spend enough money and time, you can do it.
Of course.
Right?
Of course.
On some level, we want to have fun and not turn it into, a science project.
Right.
I think the line that you draw on this stuff is where it ceases to become fun and it becomes arduous or just something you're not looking forward to. And that is going to be different, I think, for different adjudicators. And I also think that you're going to start to see different adjudicating type mentalities depending on what they're looking at. I think like the classic arcade community is going to look at things. They already look at things like ridiculously hard, and I think they're going to continue to look at things really hard. The Nintendo, like the classic consoles,
Yeah,
it has not been really determined how hard that community wants to press on itself for those kinds of things that you're mentioning, Rudy, because it's never been given a chance to even form as a community about this sort of thing. It's always been just a referee at Twin Galaxies or someone, you know. So I don't know, Rudy. I don't know. I don't know.
Just try to understand my view. After being not the only person, obviously, but the most of all. Being scammed so many times and cheated, and knowing that I was and can prove it. It's hard to sit here and say, how's this community going to decide? When I've been through it and I've seen the stuff that goes on, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but you've only seen a small part. You have not. The total number of people that you've had to interact with in this quote-unquote scene of score chasing has been very limited because of the scope of Twin Galaxies' reach in general. You're going to see a dynamic change because of the much larger amount of people that are coming in to deal with this, and particularly the age groups that come in will be closer to yours and even younger, and so they'll be more console-oriented than, say, arcade system-oriented, and they're going to sort of carry those concerns. So I understand what you're saying when you're looking at the past and you're having your concerns, but I'm also saying is that if you use just the past as your only measurement tool to anticipate the future, your targeting might be way off in terms of how severe an issue is going to be in dealing with it. I do
12
not.
years.
Yeah, but it's always been the same people in the same size over those 12 years. It's not really.
Well,
it's not really
different ownerships. There's been different ownerships.
Yeah, but it's the same process, right? It hasn't
nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed. It's going to be very different because adjudication is now out in the open. It's just out in the open. If you see something come down, well, think of it this way: you're an expert at looking at those sorts of things. If you come across an adjudication on a title, and you can identify something, you're going to be able to say, "Hey, I'm identifying this as an issue." And everybody's going to go, what? And then you can simply explain. And even in your response to the adjudication, you can post a link to a video of yourself explaining, here's how I can duplicate what you're seeing here.
Okay, now I have a double question, so it doesn't take as much time. Here's a double question. Now, years ago, I'm sure you know the story, when I did a really fast Jaws game with my fingers, and I had to go to New York City to prove that I was not using a turbo controller because that's how fast my fingers were. Now, make a long story short, I had to go do that live. Now, say somebody submits a score that somebody's in their prime like I was, 10 years ago, and they do something like as fast as I did, but they don't want to show their hands now on camcorder, and they do something that's so fast, and I show the evidence and everything, wouldn't it just be easier to make a recommendation or make a setting where it should be, okay, if you're not going to do just live, at least put a camcorder on your hands and around the system and the cartridge. And then with that, what are you going to do about grandfathered scores and scores that we can prove that have been cheated to get to achieve?
Well, okay, here are 2 quick answers. Picture a submission that's come in, and it has that very specific issue. So you're looking, you're like, I can't see your hands, and that shit's going super fast. Now, the guy says, well, I don't want to, show my hands, or I forgot to film my hands, or whatever. You could say right there in the thread of adjudication, well, dude, I'm just going to lean towards this being some fakery, unless you can show me your hands doing this. So the person who submitted can actually comment underneath that and show you a video of their hands doing it. So you can go, oh, okay, I believe it, or you can go, that's more fakery or whatever. But at least a dialogue can take place now in an adjudication where the person who's being suspected can answer to it, can say, oh no, this is what I mean, because most people who are submitting, they're trying to be honest. Most people are trying to prove this stuff. So.
Right. But there's still obviously a high amount of people that are not. Now that doesn't mean that there's not thousands that are being honest, but there's still a good.
Well, there's always going to be
people that are going to be dishonest.
Well, that's true, and as they get caught, they will be banned. But in the meanwhile, there at least can be a dialogue. There can be an opportunity for them to continue to demonstrate and prove that what they're doing is legit, and you'll be able to see that, and it all is literally recorded as a permanent record that's tied to the score if it makes it in. So now the answer to your second question is, what about grandfather scores or questionable scores? I answered earlier on in the stream. If
you wouldn't mind answering it again, I'd appreciate it.
No problem. It's very simple. Just like scores going into the database where there is evidence, there has to be evidence. Scores coming out have to have evidence that demand that it comes out.
Okay.
Fair enough. That's it. So simply saying that it's questionable is not enough. Prove it. And if you can, it'll come out.
That'll actually be pretty fun to do to expose somebody the right way, showing that they cheated. That'd actually be fun to do. I like that idea. So in other words, you'll have an area where we can play the game and show you what they did to get that score. And
you will be able to call a score into question, provide an evidence package as to why it's not valid, proving it, and then everybody's going to gather around and either agree or not agree. And if they do agree, and the whole result says, yes, this score needs to come out, that will land on my desk. I will do a final review of all of the materials, and if I see that the whole thing is a legitimate thing, it's coming out, because I don't want bad scores in the database, period.
Right. Like if you see it, like a game that somebody tiptoes to get a higher score, basically, like plays slow, quick, just purposely, just prances along, not moves,
Yeah.
Just like taps the controller so it adds more time for characters to respawn. We had this conversation before, but you know what I'm talking about.
I don't want bad scores in the database. Who's got his hand up?
Chester, what's
up?
Not much. So, for example, is your high score on Zookeeper going to be submitted?
No, it can't be.
Okay,
nope, can't be
Thank
submitted.
you.
Real quick for some of the people in our chat, is Kurt Sutter coming on?
Kurt Sutter's going to come on, yes. No,
okay,
he's not? He's not? Okay, he's not. Okay, so how much time do I have left?
Yeah, so that's what we're kind of antsy over here.
Okay. All right, we're
used to our time limit, so we're kind of freaking out.
For those of you who don't know, we are not actually at the Twin Galaxies studio.
We are not, no.
Yeah, okay, we're good apparently till 8 o'clock, apparently.
I was going to play
okay.
You keep going. When you're done, I'll hop on.
Okay, yeah, we're good. I want all these questions answered. Oh, by the way,
keep them coming.
Come here for a second.
Grandfathers.
Come down here. This is David Tashrudian. He's our Twin Galaxies lawyer.
Hey, how you doing? I feel sorry for you.
It's a great job, believe me.
What's up?
Job security.
Yeah, so
he's got a job.
So rest assured that Twin Galaxies is quite serious. So more questions. Oh yeah.
I've got a question.
Yes.
If I recall, a couple weeks ago on the Gauntlet Arena, there was like a record-setting run in one of the dungeons. Would that be submitted? Because if I recall, playing with them were a couple Twin Galaxies employees?
Okay, so there's two things. Let me answer that. The people who work at Twin Galaxies Live don't have anything to do with TwinGalaxies.com scorekeeping or anything else. Twin Galaxies Live is basically a live television network like G4, and they are not related at all in terms of adjudication or the website or any sort of authority whatsoever. So just know that. Number two, the Gauntlet record was a record established within Gauntlet itself. It keeps track of its own things. It's not a Twin Galaxies record. Now, if the people who did that record were Twin Galaxies people, they can't, even if they're on Twin Galaxies Live, they can't send in a record. So that's out. But inside of Gauntlet, it keeps its own world record thing. It has nothing to do with Twin Galaxies, though.
Very neat.
So
So
what
me
else?
and Nick can play,
So
right?
me and Mike can play?
Yeah. Yes, you guys can.
Oh,
So what's a
get excluded.
what, what's a TG lawyer do?
Well,
Oh man.
there's all kinds of things. Like,
I don't-
here, do you want me to tell you?
Loaded question.
He gives me things like this, which is, oh, this is from the United States Patent and Trademark Office. So I'm opening this, and let's see what it says. It says, oh, look at that. See if I can hold this up. You see that? That is called the official Twin Galaxies trademark has been backdated correctly. So let me simply here's like just one of the many things that is involved. As you know, Twin Galaxies ownership bounced all around, and the legal for it has bounced all around, and certain things lapsed, and certain things change, and then the it goes from incorporated, and there's international, and there's LLC. Well, all the trademark stuff starts flying around in all of that. So, of course, what I'm trying to do is bring order from front to back in Twin Galaxies, and Tash, as I call him, because his last name is Tashrudian, has managed to track down and figure out the entire trademark process. And so now the Twin Galaxies trademark of today correctly backdates its entire chain of ownership and command all the way back to November 10th, 1981.
Holy.
And it's got, this is from the government, the official seal and everything. So
He deserves a round of applause.
yeah, so yeah, there you go, Tashrudian.
Yes.
So, you know, there's all other kinds of things that he's, like for instance, you know, there's that Twin Galaxies book that's out there, or the pinball and all that. Yeah, that's still being sold. Yeah, except, where does that money go? Who has that? Where are the rights to that? Where are they, like?
I guess we need to talk, Chase.
It's all over the place.
There's a DVD out there too.
There's a DVD. Yeah, so I'm trying like. The one thing I hope you get from this broadcast is that gone are the days of confusion and sort of a clear. See, Walter always had a very clear vision of the potential of what Twin Galaxies is, and that hasn't changed. I agree with Walter completely on the player recognition and the achievement that everybody is accomplishing, and it needs to be held up, and everybody needs to be recognized. And there's all this opportunity for events and for follow-up, and that's what Walter really spoke to, and that's where his passion lies. It didn't really lie in chasing down a trademark. So, you know, the core of what Twin Galaxies is, as started in 1981, is well preserved. I'm in complete agreement with it. I am just trying to set up a very, very organized structure that everybody understands. It doesn't have any secrets inside of it or weird machinations, that everybody can buy into, participate in, and benefit from collectively. And it can grow. And I'm going to make sure everybody is treated fairly, equally, and the same in this system. That's what I'm trying to do, the structure. So, if that makes any sense.
Yep, that makes sense. I just kind of want to help carry out here in the chat.
Yeah.
I guess the question I think we need to ask first before we ask her question, you talked about this earlier about how Guinness does a specific type of world records, like you said, balancing Xbox DVDs on your head. She's talking about marathon world records. Now, I think she's talking about marathon world records as terms of time, like how long somebody can play a game, maybe not how long somebody can achieve a certain score, but just how long can somebody just keep playing the game. Is that something Twin Galaxies is going to track, or is that something that you know of that's going to kind of state a Guinness thing? For example, I saw somebody play, they just had a marathon of somebody playing Call of Duty. Doesn't mean they played it good or well. They probably lost a lot, but they played it for 86 hours straight. I think that's where Carrie's asking, is that something where Twin Galaxies is going to become a part of that? Or is that something like a Guinness thing they're going to keep track of that kind of stuff?
All right, so listen. Guinness's involvement is theoretical, okay? So let's just establish that I have not stated yet that it's a guaranteed thing. But in theory, if we were working together, there are things that are distinctly Guinness, and there are things that are distinctly Twin Galaxies when it comes to video game. Now generally, Twin Galaxies is oriented towards scores and hard scientific statistical measurements of video game performance, and not necessarily focused on the human extremes. Now, you get an interesting cross-section when you start talking about marathons, marathon gameplay. Twin Galaxies has historically tied a score to the marathon gameplay. Like the marathon itself is a side effect of the fact that someone's going for 100 million points on Missile Command. So it's still point-oriented. What I can say is, if Twin Galaxies and Guinness were to work together, we would have discussed events that are Guinness-focused on Guinness-type records, but Twin Galaxies is still there to help and participate and create player appreciation as well. That would occur, theoretically. And vice versa, where there might be something that, well, theoretically, anytime you're setting a score in Twin Galaxies, it would theoretically be a Guinness World Record already. So their participation coming the other direction would theoretically already be present.
I think that answers the question.
So is this for every game that's ever made?
What for every game that's ever made?
Like your judification.
Oh yeah, yep.
So for every single game in existence.
Every single game in existence that we build a track for, right? So is there enough interest to build a track for a particular game? But I want to include mobile games like iPhone, iPad, Android games, as well as handheld. There's no reason why we can't adjudicate and have those players participate in the community. They will be different. A mobile phone submission will not be as extensive as an classic arcade. It can't be because of the nature of what they're playing on. So all you can do is, what's the best evidence package you can provide given the context of what you have to do to play it and be on it, and then the community can judge on that. So, but I think it will find its place. Its expectations. We will find for things like classic consoles, how to deal with those issues. The community is going to center in on what works for all the different platforms, and it will be different. The judging will be different on them, and your expertise as an adjudicator will grow because of that. Your knowledge in video games will grow because of that. You might play classics all the time, but Rudy showing you that holding down the reset button is expanding your knowledge in general of all of gaming, and he might go to adjudicate on a classic arcade where he's like, well, I didn't know that there's 3 different ROM sets for Zookeeper, and that ROM revision 2, actually the jump is shorter, or something like that, right? So
Mm-hmm.
So cumulatively, as a community, we will all get more epic. And I want people who are involved with the Twin Galaxies community to understand that they are at the top of the food chain when it comes to taking gameplay seriously, taking adjudication seriously, and their submissions seriously. This is the top of the food chain. I don't care how serious of a League of Legends player you are. That's great. That's a subcategory of esports underneath Twin Galaxies, which is all esports, everything.
I guess kind of goes for adjudication. What about, we'll say, questionable rules or tracks on old games? I'm assuming this will be in the future, but like you talked about, Twin Galaxies will be setting up new tracks.
Right.
Will Twin Galaxies go back and maybe correct some tracks?
No.
Or
no.
do some clarifications on rules?
It will, if in extreme cases, it will have to create a new track next to the one that people feel has something in it that's not right, but you have
something missing.
You have a bunch of scores already set against a particular track, so to go in and change the track would effectively invalidate those scores because they did not occur under the same conditions. So you can't just simply tweak the rules of a track. If it's a big enough deal, then what you have to do is you have to create another track that addresses the issue specifically, and people can submit against that.
Okay. I mean, I'm just going to use my own personal experience. I'm looking at one thing right now, and there's just one score for all these tracks. It's a racing game, and I've played the game enough, and the track is there, but it's on two separate settings. But under the rules, there is no... under the rule system currently, that doesn't say what mode it's on. It's called Big Thrash mode and Arcade mode. Now, they both have the same type of tracks. Well, there's no way for me to know what that guy played on. So what you're saying is, for that type of specific case, a new track would be recorded saying, this is the rules with Arcade, and we just leave the other one alone. Actually,
yes.
in that case, would be a good reason to grandfather a specific rule set. Okay, that makes sense.
What was that?
Who on Skype is dragging things around?
Not me.
What it sounds like.
But I do have a question.
Yes.
Yes, Jace. Again, this might be something I kind of asked, but I don't think I did. On the grandfathering, will that be the same as me going back proving somebody cheated a score where I would prove it, or are grandfathering are those rules going to be different, like ungrandfathering old scores?
No, Twin Galaxies. Twin Galaxies today looks at things in a very binary fashion. If a score in the database is not legitimate and it can be proven, it's out. I don't care whether it's grandfathered one way or the other. It doesn't make any difference. If it's not a real score, it has to come out if it can be proven that that score is not valid. Period.
No, I'm talking about, though, if something's been grandfathered and it was valid, what are we going to do about that? That was my question.
Well, like
Jaws, for instance. I proved that it never should have been grandfathered.
Okay, you need to explain that more, because either a score is a legitimate score and it was achieved according to the rules at the time, or it was not.
Okay, I'll kind of clarify. I think I know what Rudy's talking about.
Go ahead.
I score at one. Are things in the future going to be what's called ungrandfathered? Start accepting scores for example, in the past, Twin Galaxies stopped accepting scores on specific tracks because it was kind of like a leeching method where you would just keep pushing and pushing to get points. Rudy did it with Jaws when you guys broadcasted it, that you could push the game further and get more points going by those original rules. It was closed off for a reason, not because there's a glitch in the game or something. It was just, I don't know what the reason was. Somebody could push it further, but for some reason, on some of them, they're closed.
You're talking about this more subjective idea called spirit of the game that Twin Galaxies applied in the past on tracks.
Yeah, because it was a score-based game, M fastest completion.
Okay.
And what happened was instead of them actually, checking the game like they should have, they just went over everybody else's head as adjudicators, and they closed the score without being able to prove that it couldn't go any further. They made it like the game would go on forever. As you can see, when I did the 25 hours, I proved that the game can roll, and it becomes almost impossible to beat after the roll because of the changes.
Let me just give you a straight and clear answer on this, okay?
Okay.
I would not have done that. So, to me, if you set up a track and then the rules are there and people are playing according to the rules, that's it. If you don't, that's it. You don't just stop a track because you don't like the results coming in.
So we reopen something like that is my question, or do we have to reopen it as a community?
Well, those types of things are going to have to be really specifically looked at on a case-by-case basis. Personally, I don't have a particular bias about, let's just put it this way. On the basis of what I've been told right now, if what you're saying was the reason the Jaws track was closed.
Yeah, right? You were there, remember? You saw me play.
I'm just saying is philosophically, if the Jaws track was closed just because refs decided that there was some sort of non-spirit of the game point leeching thing and they just closed it off.
That's what they did.
Then just on that basis alone, I don't see why it would need to stay closed, because it's if there's a track and there's rules and you're submitting against those rules, that's it. There's not an additional subjectivity to that. So So the way you would let me give you a good example. The reason they did that, when I think about it, is they don't have a system like what we have with this new adjudication system, because here's where that problem gets solved in this new system. The community would not they just wouldn't approve a score if they felt that it was too leechy or whatever. It would get stopped there. You wouldn't have to close a track off. If a score is being adjudicated, right? So let's say, the rules are, X, Y, and Z, and then Rudy, you submit a score and you follow X, Y, and Z, but you point leech up the wazoo, right? It didn't say not to point leech, but if for whatever reason the adjudicating community on that score just can't get over the fact that it was so point leech, they just won't adjudicate it in. But other than that, it would go in.
And keep in mind, I even did better than the rules. What I did was I only played 5 lives, if you remember, okay? The game was actually allowed for points, as many extra lives as you wanted. I played for 22 hours on 5 lives, so I would think that, especially on a lower life count, it should definitely be reinstated. And then the next question and last question is low scores, which is another thing that I came up with a concept of.
So that low scores and any other sort of new tracks, that's a whole separate kind of discussion. How is a new track created? What is the reason? Blah, blah, blah. And that gets into level of interest. That turns into just a functional conversation. It's not an opinion conversation.
Okay.
It's just, whether we're tracking number of televisions, or to me, it's just, is that something that we want to do? Can we do it? Is it but it's not, there's no opinion. I have no opinion on it.
Okay.
Duke has his hand up.
Yep. Who had a hand up?
Duke Nukem.
Well,
Jace, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. This is sort of like a backtrack question, but as far as the glitches go, now is it the game designers that add the glitches to the game, or how would somebody even find out there's a glitch in the game as far as cheat codes and stuff like that?
Well, basically you attain a level of eliteness and then you just discover glitches because you're so awesome that you are breaking the game and discovering magical things.
I love it.
I knew he was going to do that.
That's pretty much it.
I knew it.
If you have to ask how to find out about a glitch, then you're not elite enough. You have to go home.
About all the glitches.
You need to go home and play some fundamental games like chess by yourself, and then just learn your mastery.
I swear I'm going to come to Twin Galaxies and destroy your Zookeeper code.
Oh, God, look at this guy.
All right, thanks a lot, man.
All right.
there.
Here's the kill screen.
Right
here.
Hey, Jace, I almost changed things up here. Have you ever, as a person and or a company, have you ever considered doing like maybe like a live tournament? Like just a number of games, not just one specific game, but like
okay,
you,
so
right.
that's okay. So let me talk about that. At some point, Twin Galaxies will hold an event or two that obviously is for fun,
Cool.
and will create. You know, I've spent a fair amount of time discussing historical issues and things that have been done with Robert Merchek, because I need to understand what's gone down in the past and all these other sorts of things. And I do think that sort of an annual Twin Galaxies gathering would benefit the community, and it could be really cool. We could do cool things like Iron Man's, where we have like all of the classic arcade games, and then you give everybody 10 minutes a shot and they got to move down and down in the total score. There's some fun stuff that you can do. And that exists in my head, and it's something that's going to happen. I just can't. There's so many things ahead of it that I'm trying to get done. Because believe me, the adjudication system and all that stuff is complex, and it's hard. So now, and I'm only one human with the team, but I have to make all these decisions. But yes, I want to have Twin Galaxies specific events, and I also want to have at these events awards for accomplishments that have been taking place in the Twin Galaxies world, and on
sweet,
whether it's your credibility that you've built up, whether or record holders and participation that they have. I think that's going to be there.
Sounds awesome.
And I think it'll be.
Can me and Nick MC it?
It'll be. No, we need guys with talent. So then, you like that? Boom!
Everybody.
Pow! Pow! Boom!
Me and Mike always get screwed on the no talent thing, man.
No. Again, the goal is to have fun, to put fun back into it, and to recognize how good everybody is. Let's get this, dude. There's a lot of work to do. Obviously, I'm tired. I literally work 7 days a week.
I know. I didn't think we would be pressuring you. I didn't know we had the extra half
No,
an
seriously,
hour.
we weren't planning on the extra hours. It's actually good. It's a more of free flowing than I would originally anticipate.
Yeah, you're doing the state of the galaxy.
Yes,
Well, I'd also like to do like one of the things Walter dreamt of was like United States versus other countries, and I think that once we have our system in place, we'll be able to filter and get to a point where you could have a team that you can then pit against some other country for some giant PR thing or something like that. There's fun for fun, right? It's
like a Ryder Cup of video games,
there's a lot of fun that can be unlocked in a system like this. Rudy Ferretti says score challenges wrongfully closed. What about that? Give me an example, Rudy. But you got to unmute yourself.
Yeah, no, I know. Sorry. I just want to make sure I didn't type and talk at the same time. For instance, there was a score challenge done by me. Okay, but we don't need to just bring me into it. But anyways, by me, and it was for the same game that I'm going to challenge as far as the score goes when we reopen up. But make a long story short, there was a time that was supposedly beaten. This person was never found, never proven to be alive, never proven to have done the score, no proof whatsoever. And the deal was, by the former owner, according to the rules, if we could not find this person to challenge me live, because I was within a certain percentile of the score, which was about 90%, and you're supposed to be only 85, if we couldn't find the person or challenge them live in a certain amount of time, the score would be yanked from the database.
I know. Okay, so I know what you're talking about, and that whole score challenge thing just can't exist anymore in the new system. It doesn't exist. It can't.
So wait a minute. So that means I'm going to get screwed though by somebody that may not even exist, that has a fake.
All you have to do is do the performance and then just submit it, and it'll adjudicate and defeat the score.
Settle it on the screen.
No, you're not hearing me. What if the time can't be done and it was done by computer?
If the time literally can't be done, then you need to submit it into a questionable score routine and provide all the evidence, and then it will get pulled out.
I see.
Right?
So I'm not gonna lie. That would be a hard one to prove. I won't lie to you there.
Yeah, look, you will have an avenue, one way or the other, to go at a score if you think it's bunk, right? So you either just straight up beat it, and that's the end of that discussion, or you prove that it's just not possible. And you can bring all the technical bearing onto that proof that you want. It's not. I mean, it's to me, it's just fact is fact. If it can't be done, then it just can't be done.
And then back to the reset button just for a quick moment. I didn't just mean holding the reset button down itself. Just so you know, I meant going into the game.
No, I know what you mean.
Putting all the
we know what you mean. We know what you mean.
Look, the bottom line is what you mean is cheating bitches who do anything to just try to cheat and be bitch about it. So I agree that look, man, there's like millions and millions of dollars in the Tour de France. Lance Armstrong just kept cheating his ass off, and he kept winning it. So there's always going to be people who are trying to beat the system.
Not until you got caught.
But yeah, and he got caught, right? I think our system will catch people a little bit faster than 10 years. And because in order to try to beat our system, you have to exercise it. There's no way you're just going to come in one shot and beat the system. You're going to have to exercise it, and we can just detect all of that. It's just they're going to get caught. So, and for what? To try to get one score? I mean, it's just not even worth it.
To get one lousy score.
It's not even worth it.
Pointless. Why would you waste your time?
I mean.
Well, you got to remember,
and they're also risking a ban for life.
All we have is pride, you know. Until we start getting paid and treated like professionals, really all we have is pride. So the scores matter, you know. Obviously, if Jay said tomorrow we're going to have contracts and be like NHL players, it wouldn't matter to me anymore. I'd be like, oh, we're getting paid, so go ahead and take my score, you know.
Yeah, but you know, pride is like it's like we have to collectively act like professionals if we're going to get treated like professionals collectively. So,
right.
And I want everybody in this community to just look down on score manipulation, any kind of collusion. I want people in Twin Galaxies. If you're a part of Twin Galaxies, you've joined the church of video game playing achievement, and there is no room for people who are faking. It's like, oh, dude, I signed up. Why don't you help me vote my thing up? No, screw you. There's no fakers here. If I even, as a Twin Galaxy member, if I even condone anybody faking, it degrades my overall association with Twin Galaxies. It's like you want to preserve and elevate it, and then basically you want to keep any fakers the heck out. That's
you want to protect your own.
Yeah, and this is, you know, I'm obviously investing a lot in this. I believe in it. I believe in the players. I believe in this core community, that it can be grown much, much larger. And I want everybody to have an attitude of, look, you can screw around anywhere else, but do not come into our house and try to pee on the rug. You're out if you do. That's it. Right. You know, it's like if you dedicate so much of your lifetime into playing video games, and you genuinely want to be recognized, and you want it to matter in the mass culture, Twin Galaxies is the place that can do it. You want to make sure it does it, and you don't want anybody messing with it because you benefit. You want those people out.
Right. No, I understand. I just, you know, that's the questions I have. I want to make sure that everything's going to be right. But the only thing I disagree with, you know, and again, maybe you'll change it in the future, is that if this guy, Ryan Bland, is not real and we can't prove that he's alive, I just don't think it's fair. The person that may not be alive has a score in the database, and there should be a way to prove if this person really ever submitted.
Well, look, then just prove that.
You got to prove it. You got to prove it. Like you said earlier.
I swear to God, if you prove it, it will come out. It's that simple.
Right. I wish I could. I mean, I don't understand how we're going to prove if somebody's alive or not, or where they are, especially if they don't exist.
Even if they're dead, you still have to prove that they didn't even submit that score, or that score doesn't work, or anything. But other than pure conjecture, you've got to provide something that can be permanently logged, because when a score comes out, it's going to be linked to the evidence. So that any other person who shows up who says, whoa, whatever, who tries to say Rudy Ferretti just had an agenda and that's why he said it, you want to be able to say, no, click that link. You see the proof? Shut up. It had nothing to do with Rudy Freddy and an agenda. There is proof. That is the end of this conversation.
Yeah, like if Ryan Bland was to come out tomorrow and wanted to play me and he beat me, I'd shake his hand and be like, look, you're better than me. But this is not happening, and it never has. It's always something that doesn't make sense that has beaten me. You know, I can't name one time somebody's beaten me legitimately and can prove it.
Well, except me whipping you at Archon on the Commodore 64. Okay, moving on.
And Moon League hockey going down tomorrow.
Anytime.
Me whipping you at Jordan versus Bird.
Hey! Yeah, you got me. I'm going to get you, though. Now I know your secret. You put it live, so I'm going to get it back.
Wait. There's a good question. Jess Quick asked, can my submission video include more than one angle? Well, there's two answers to that question. One is if you make your video and it has multiple viewing angles already in that single video, that's great. If not, the submission process only allows one video to be uploaded as the official video, but you can, in your evidence package, supply links to other videos if you want to. And those can be additional angles or what have you. But there's always going to be that one official score performance video that people will look at.
Good question. Jace, we kind of have the loaded question here.
Load it up.
The big one where people, of course, you may or may not answer it. Do we have an anticipation or do we have a date by chance when we're ready to go?
Well,
no?
I can tell you what I am shooting for.
Okay.
Cool, that works.
But I can't guarantee it. But I can tell you what I'm shooting for.
Ian likes to guarantee, so I totally understand you.
Okay. January 1st.
Oh.
Okay.
Nice.
Is when the system should come online. Now, what will prevent that from happening is errors. Right now, the entire system is finished, and every night I'm up all night with the team, and we're testing it. I'm trying to cheat it. I'm seeing, making sure all the variation in submissions cannot be predicted because every submission is unique in terms of how much voter weight it's going to take to push it, how long adjudication is going to stay open, all these things that you cannot predict or keep track of, so the system can't be manipulated. I'm trying my hardest to manipulate the system. And so I'm literally doing that every night, and I plan on doing that for the next 30 days with the team. And if I can break it or cause bugs or whatever, and there's all this other stuff that you'll never see, but it relates to administrative programming, in order to identify certain methods of manipulation. I need to be able to see this, I need to see that, I need this on the admin side, there's all this stuff. So if I can't get through it all, then it will be more delayed, but my goal is for it to come on with just the basic stuff. The other thing is I have to go through the whole database and block score submissions for all the areas that are currently, I basically am trying to take Twin Galaxies. The moment it stopped, it didn't take certain scores on certain tracks. Our system right now has all those tracks open. I have to go through and block all the ones that were officially blocked back in the day, and then we'll address each particular one that needs to be unblocked on a case-by-case basis. So there's all that work that has to take place. But
it does. Like I said, I can't imagine it. Not an easy task at all. And by the way, I think many of us in the gaming community thank you. As Walter Day would say, absolutely. You are one of the saints of the video game community.
Oh, I'm not that. Is that Stall? Is that Stall in the?
That's the one and only.
Look at that.
Yeah. Hey, buddy.
How's it going, mate? Yeah, get on ya.
Good morning to you.
And good morning to you.
So, my goal in getting up here in front of everybody and just opening up to any question is to help people understand what is being accomplished, what the goal is. I've stayed out of the public light of Twin Galaxies for a very specific reason. I didn't want to come into this scene talking a bunch of stuff and not delivering anything, which is, to me, like the worst thing you can do. So I've not gone to events. I didn't go to the CGE, and I don't go to all these different events, because if I don't have answers and I don't have things to actually provide, I should just keep my stupid mouth shut. So that's why I got the site up. I restored all the messages. I restored the accounts. I'm trying to do all these things first before saying anything or making any kind of promise or anything like that. So I'm sorry if I've kept, previously, Twin Galaxies leadership always sort of got out in front of everything, and then the follow-up was much harder, right? Like,
yeah, you don't know how many things we announced that never came true.
That was
drove
like
us
what our show was
crazy.
about, basically.
Yeah. So I don't want to do that. And Twin Galaxies is not all about me. It's not a pyramid to me. I'm not interested in being the high point or the Walter is always going to be like the godfather and symbolically, because his vision is his vision. I'm just trying to fulfill that promise. I'm not going to ever try to take the stage in that way. I want the players in the community to take the stage and to have those opportunities. I'm already well known and I already do things. So it's not about me trying to be famous or me trying to get attention. I don't care if I get attention or not. I really want the players to have attention, and I want fun put back into chasing scores. It is the funnest thing to do, is to compete with each other and to chase scores and to kind of recognize how cool, how good our gameplay is. That's what I'm trying to do. So I hope that makes sense.
Jace,
I hear major feedback coming in.
You should try the NES Archon, see if you could do it perfect, and then do it faster than I did it. If you could do that, then you're a better Archon player than me. So that's your challenge.
To me, head-to-head Archon is always the most fun.
I know, but we can't do that until you invite me down to the studio, and so.
The thing about Nintendo is that gamepad. It's like, on the Commodore it uses a joystick, right? And the Nintendo is a gamepad.
I did it for 22 hours with one thumb. Come on now.
Yeah, but those diagonals in Archon, diagonal shots are like the money makers. And it's like on a gamepad, those diagonals.
Get an NES Advantage.
Yeah, I know, but then it's just not. You want to keep it.
Controller. As long as I know the turbo's turned off, I don't care.
Yeah, turbo's not going to help you on Archon.
No, it won't. That's true.
I wish it would, but it won't.
Take
life. Zookeeper, bro.
Right. Look at that wallpaper.
Yeah, you love it?
Yeah,
I made it myself.
It looks good. It looks good.
It's just a general question about the.
Okay, so until the head-to-head Archon, then just see if you can do the perfect, just for the heck of it. You should try it.
Filt80 says that the C64 version is the best anyway.
I've never played it, so I can't say. I'm not gonna lie like other people say. Oh, I've played that.
You're a young man, so you were after the Commodore 64, but you got the Nintendo.
No, I had 64 for a short time. I just never had that game.
Well, that just put a tear in my eye.
Yeah, I played Paradox Street.
So, are there any? When is the next big event? I need to escape the cold. Data God, I have felt much safer with you in Antarctica. So I think you should stay there. Are there any other questions? Anything?
I have a question about the system you're putting in place. As I understand what you've been saying, it's just the adjudication system, so Twin Galaxies will only be responsible for putting the system in place, whereas the community will have almost the entire say about whose records count for what. Is that correct?
That is simplified, yes. But the way that the community is having its say is a very, very controlled scenario that is designed to mitigate collusion, and it's designed to individually motivate each adjudicating member to serve themselves by answering and adjudicating correctly, and to not have a vested interest into a group dynamic of adjudication.
Right, that's what I meant by the system you're putting in place. But
Right.
I guess I was asking, like, Twin Galaxies can't just come in and say, oh, the community's agreed on this, but, you know, we're going to poo-poo this. We're going to be faithless electors, if you will.
Nope, I'm not. That's not going to happen. Now, here's another interesting thing when it comes to live adjudications. So you're having an event and you want a Twin Galaxies referee there so you can adjudicate live. All that a Twin Galaxies representative could do in a theoretical is say that they were there as a witness, and you could include that as part of your evidence package, and that could either mean something to people or not. So it's it's going to be interesting because there's guys like Mark Alpiger. Is that her name? His name? Piger?
You're close.
Is it Piger? I don't know. So if he was talking about on his site, like being a referee for hire, basically. He basically says that he has a lot of credibility as someone who will scrutinize a performance. So if you want to send a videotape to him or have him appear live with you and verify, he can be part of your evidence package that goes into Twin Galaxies. And I thought that was kind of interesting because it could create opportunities for people. If there is someone who the community thinks is actually a really good witness, and it matters if they've seen something or not, well, that could create opportunity for that person to even make money, because if you want to pay him to come to your house and stand there because you know that that will help people believe that what you're doing is legit, go for it. It doesn't have anything to do with Twin Galaxies. It's not, but it could create a cottage industry of experts that volunteer, proof that they're more to the evidence package. I don't know if that will work, but that's one of the ideas I've seen floating out there. Right? So, and there's also one last thing I want to bring up, which is there was a whole discussion about private submissions. And people were making arguments for and against private submissions under the old Twin Galaxy system. And for those people who are watching, what I'm referring to is some people will have an arcade machine and they'll play a bunch, like Zookeeper, for example. People will develop techniques on an arcade machine after thousands and thousands of hours of play. They'll discover little nuanced things and they'll put up a really big score. So they've invested heavily into the technique that they have. And if they're forced to send a videotape into a public forum, they know that other players of that game will watch their technique and duplicate it and potentially be able to challenge their score with the technique they developed. And they don't want to show their performance for that reason. They don't want people to get, to what they slaved for 1,000 hours to figure out. They don't want to just give that up. So historically, Twin Galaxies used to have private submissions where only a single referee would watch the tape. It wouldn't be public. The referee would say that's a legit score, and then it would go up, but no one else would see the technique. So in a public adjudication system, they'd have to show their video, and everybody would have to see it. And so you got players who were saying, I don't want to do that, and they were arguing the merits of private, because they were saying, look, if we don't submit, then you're not going to have the best players who submitted because you won't get to see the performances. And then there were people arguing the public, saying, no, if you want public recognition of how great you are, then show what you have in public. I mean, the NFL, if you're on the NFL, you can develop all your strategies privately, practice privately all day long, but when it comes to game day, you're going to do your technique on the field in front of absolutely everybody. So, so the argument goes back and forth and back and forth, and obviously in the new Twin Galaxy system, you don't have to submit a video if you don't want to, right? But one of the things that I thought was really interesting that was never brought up, and it was this fact. When arcade machines were initially created, they were for public places. So if you were going to play a video game, a Pac-Man, it was in a public spot. Now, of course, you could, if you were wealthy enough at the time, you could buy your own arcade machine and bring it home and develop techniques. The argument that never got brought up was, if you allow private submissions, because people can afford to have their own arcade machine at home, you're essentially potentially giving wealthy people a leg up over people who aren't wealthy enough to have their own machine to compete at that same level, because they can't buy a machine and bring it home. So whether or not, so private performances would be a privilege of the more fortunate. And does Twin Galaxies want to reward or create a system that favors the more fortunate versus the less fortunate? That actually never got brought up in the conversation. I thought that was interesting. But I wanted to throw that out there just as, now that the point is completely moot, but to me, it's an interesting thing to think about, because was it ever the intention for these arcade machines to be sitting inside people's homes so that they can privately develop, you know, and compete against someone who has to compete out in public? It's just a question that's being thrown out there.
Excellent. So really what people need to be doing for this next month is they need to be getting themselves verified, right? Right, Jace?
Oh, yeah.
So for the next month?
You should get verified if you aren't on Twin Galaxies. It's really important so that you can participate. It doesn't cost you anything. Don't lie on your verification form. Just be honest who you are. Twin Galaxies is never going to sell or give out your information. Not doing it. Not interested in doing that. Don't need to do it. It's the reason that we need your information is because we all need to know that we're dealing with each other as real people. And if you're going to theoretically be recorded in the Guinness Book of World Records, it needs to be your name, not Mr. X. And since everybody would be giving their name, and you can know that Twin Galaxies has contact information for everybody, it helps to mitigate behavior, because there's no anonymousness. Everybody's responsible for who they are in the system. And you also know that the people who are judging your performance are actually real people and not bots or anything else. That's why. Pinky swear, Vundo, pinky swear.
So do it.
Oh,
Get verified so you can be ready January 1st.
So have I answered all of the burning questions out there, or is there anything else? Anything from Twin Galaxies past? Anything from the acquiring of Twin Galaxies? Anything? Anything? Is there anything you want to know? Because
got to remember that no punk bastard ever. Classic.
Look at that. I want the community to understand that I am willing to answer questions. When is my birthday? I was born in 16,000 BC when the first video game was made with rocks. And we would throw them at each other.
Phil Tudos had a good question.
What was the question?
He says, so just to clarify, MAME scores will be accepted as long as the IMP file isn't the first and only piece of evidence.
No. No, that's not true. You could submit a MAME score however you want.
Love it.
So I'm just saying you should provide as much information as you can and not just rely on an IMP score only, on an IMP file. But you can if you want to. That's totally fine. I can tell you, no, I'll keep that as a secret. There's more cool stuff coming up that as relates to emulation, because I think there are things Twin Galaxies can do to create some more stability and conformity in how to rate emulated stuff. But the database already has emulation in it for certain platforms and for certain versions. But just know that that's something that I'm looking at, and that I see a lot of really good solutions. It's going to cost me a lot of money to solve this, but there's some good solutions moving forward for emulation in general, and that Twin Galaxies is going to be helping to simplify and level that realm, so competitiveness can occur there a little bit more than it does now. You know, I think that we can bring a little more security into the situation. I think we can bring a little bit more fairness into the situation on emulation in general.
Excellent. Another question from the from the chat. This is an old time. I used to sign them for people. In the future, of course, because you got a lot of things on your plate, will Twin Galaxies be issuing certificates?
Yes.
Okay, there's your answer.
Yes, Twin Galaxies will be issuing certificates, and there will be other things that will become available that it's Twin Galaxies brand related that can only be earned and not purchased. So get your credibility up, get your hold some records, hold some positions. There'll be some cool stuff, but absolutely, certificates are coming back. I had the original stamp that Roy Schilt gave to Walter. So I have that. What I did was I took that, I had it duplicated because it was starting to wear. It didn't make a full stamp. I had a new stamp created of the original stuff. I've placed in a frame the old one with a letter from Walter. So the original one is framed, and then I have the new one, which is a direct copy of the original, that it's all pristine and it presses hard, and it really creates the right imprint for the certificates.
Got to remember, there's no punk bastard ever. I love Roy. He's me mate.
Roy, and this is for Roy. When we get all through all this other stuff, I am going to look at, just like every other issue, the Missile Command score issue.
Oh my gosh.
I'm gonna go right to the fundamentals of it. I think Roy's core argument is that the settings are not individually tracked in the database. I tend to agree that is an issue. You have a bunch of scores all grouped together, whether it's fast or slow settings. There's no way to break those out away from each other because you don't know how they were set. There's nothing you can do about that. That's just you don't know. However, going forward, having a distinction between the settings, I think, is important. So, but I'll look at it in great detail. I'll even talk with him about it and all this other stuff. But I want this whole database from front to back to be super credible and for it to make logical sense. I'm not coming at it in some sort of subjective, emotional way. And it looks like I have 36 seconds left before this goes off.
Thank you, Jace, for kind of basically doing the I forgot the name of the show already. But settle on the screen, and that's what you've done tonight. And we appreciate it, and we're really excited come next year, hopefully, if everything goes as well, to announce those world records and promote those gamers on this show, interview them, talk about the scores. It's going to be great. Thank you, Jay, so much for coming on the show tonight. Appreciate all your hard work. And like I said, you're saying to the video game community.
I got to go. I've got 2 seconds. Bye.
See ya. FCC is next. Stay around. Bye.